How's it going? Today I'm talking about how slow Run Disney runners can have time for character stops.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
So, if you're running Run Disney, you want to enjoy the magic of it. I get it. That's why you do it. That's why you don't just go out and run on your own. That's why you don't just sign up for a local race. You want part of the magic that's happening at Run Disney. You want to run through the parks. You want to get photos with your favorite characters, especially the rare ones, which you know that the rare ones come out for Run Disney races. A couple years ago, so 2024, I did the half marathon at Marathon Weekend, and it was decades themed. So the half marathon was 90s to 2000, and then full marathon was 2000 to present. So I had planned, like, these are the characters I want a photo with, and I listed them out. And based on my list, which included joy and sadness from Inside Out, obviously those were not going to happen at the half marathon because they happened in the 2000s and later, and I wasn't doing the full marathon. So not a possibility. But sometimes when the race is themed differently, you don't have those kind of restrictions. So with the race being 90s to 2000, I was like, oh my God, Hercules. So I want Pain and Panic. I want Hercules and Megara. These are characters that you never see in the parks. And of course, there were other ones, but those stick out in my mind as top tier, must stop no matter how long I have to wait. Now, this race that I'm talking about, 2024 half marathon at Marathon Weekend, was a unique one because it ended up being half of a half. And actually, now that I've said that, it actually ended up being even less than that for some people. I did half of a half, 7.1 miles or so. The reason being they cut the race short because of potential lightning strikes. So they made the decision the night before that the lightning is too big of a factor. It's too much potential. So we are going to automatically just cut this down to a half of a half. And then day of, it rained, and during the race, they even made the decision to cut it down even more for more of the back of the packers. So this race, I decided, you know what? I really want these characters. I made that priority list and I passed Hercules and Megara, and I waited in line. I waited in line for 25 minutes. Now, typical waiting in line for a character stop is about 5 minutes on average. Now, I have polled my audience in the Run Disney community on Instagram and asked what are typical wait times, and I averaged them out. They were about 5 minutes or less. So 25 minutes is completely atypical, not normal. And I think it's because it was half of a half. So there were fewer character stops for people to go and take advantage of. So more people were lining up for all of these ones. And that's okay. And there actually weren't as many photo stops anyway, as many character stops anyway, because they were pulling the photographers. So towards the end of the race, there were none. I only passed a few in the beginning, and I'm glad I took advantage of getting Hercules and Megara when I did, because not only are they rare characters, but I wouldn't have gotten any character stops otherwise, just because they cut it short. And I don't even have a finish line photo. I think I have 2 other on-course photos, and I couldn't even see them because of either how hard it was raining or just being distracted. I don't quite remember, but the photos aren't great. As opposed to Halloween half marathon weekend at Disneyland, I saw them and I prepared and I, you know, it was not like an Instagram photo fail. Like it was actually Instagram worthy. But how do you, aside from that type of race where they cut the race in half and they have these atypical instances, how can you actually have time for these character stops? So, a couple of things. Take into consideration that on average, it's less than a 5-minute wait for characters. Prioritize who you want a photo with. So, in general, at Disney World, the theme of the race, those characters are typically out at the expo. So you will see Dopey, you will see Goofy, you will see Chip and Dale for the 10K. You will see Donald and Daisy for the half marathon. You will likely see those at the expo. So take into consideration that if you want photo stops with them, maybe get them at the expo. So then that could be a few extra minutes that you have on the course for somebody else. Or if it's a character that you know will be in the park, maybe put that on the reserve list as opposed to the priority list. And then make your list of characters. Like if I ever see Olaf on the course, I'm stopping. If I ever see Joy or Sadness, I'm stopping. If I see Pain and Panic, I'm stopping. I was so bummed out at Halloween half marathon weekend that the I think this is so weird. And maybe somebody knows the answer as to why they did this, but the theme characters of the race didn't have a standard photo pass stop. You could stop and do a selfie with your phone, but it wasn't a photographer like photo pass stop for Ursula, for Cruella. I don't even know if Maleficent was there. And then Pain and Panic, same thing. So, like, I stood off to the side and I took a video of Pain and Panic on the stage because I wasn't going to wait in that line to get a photo with my iPhone. I wanted to utilize the time for the PhotoPass stops because also in Disneyland, your PhotoPass comes with your race bib. So I wanted to use it. So that happened, but typically at Disney World, if it's the theme, they have the characters out. Now, of course, maybe there have been instances where they haven't. From what I've seen, they typically do. So keep that in mind. But make your list a priority. If you're lucky, or if you know where to look, a couple of days before the race, somebody who lives in the Orlando area drives around Disney World to see where the different character stops are, at least on the highway. So Disney World is different than Disneyland in this aspect because Disneyland had no character stops once you were outside the park because Disney does not own that property. Disney World, Disney owns that property, so they can have the characters on the highway as well. And so somebody in the general Orlando area can drive around and you can see there will be a sign that will say Mickey, Chip and Dale, Olaf, Joy, Sadness, whoever it is for where that character stop is. And so somebody somewhere writes a list of, okay, between mile 1 and 2, here's the list. Between mile 2 and 3, here's the list, and so on and so forth for the races. So you may be able to find it and then you can prioritize from that, like, oh God, yep, I have a million with Chip and Dale, so I'm gonna hold out for Olaf or something like that. And you can do that. So there are different ways to prioritize or organize your race weekend. But let's get into what you're probably really hoping for is how do you actually make sure you have the time for it? So when we think about how much time each character stop takes, then we can plan out how fast we need to be. So if you've been in this world for any length of time, in my world for any length of time, listening to this podcast, following me on Instagram, you know my typical running client is slow back of the pack. We're talking 13-minute per mile, 14-minute per mile, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 minute per mile. And you may be thinking, how does somebody finish the race at 17, 18, or 19 minute per mile? The 16 minute per mile pace starts when the last person crosses the starting line. So you could have a bigger buffer depending on where you're starting in the corral. So if you get in Corral B because you have Club Run Disney Platinum membership, you have quite a large buffer. So I had a client a couple of years ago who ran the Dopey Challenge, and in the marathon, she finished in like an 18 and change minute per mile average pace because she started in the B corral, because she had platinum membership. So you can average out slower. And so that's one way to do it. That's not the most realistic way because it takes forever to get into Club Run Disney. You have to go through the different steps. You have to go through silver and gold and platinum because you have to wait for each of them to open up, and they open up first to somebody who's already in it, and so on and so forth. And then second, when we're thinking about this, have your training set up so that you can get faster. Now, you have heard me say before that while you're actively training for the race, not the ideal time to get faster. Not impossible, but not ideal because you only want to change one variable at a time, right? It's like the scientific method. You only change one thing because if something works or doesn't work, you don't know what caused it. So if you are ramping up mileage and improving, going faster, improving your speed, improving your pace, going faster at the same time, and the likely situation is you get hurt, you don't know, was it because I was going too fast or was it because I was going too far too soon, or a combination of the two and my body just didn't like it. So typically what I recommend is start working on the speed, start working on your pace before you officially start training for your race. Not only will this help reduce your risk of injury, it will make training for the race feel better. I was going to say easier, but training for a race is really never easy, but it will feel better. You mentally won't have that overhead of, God, I'm so slow. Because a lot of my runners feel that way. They're like, oh, I just can't imagine actually finishing the race in it at all, or in the time frame that I want. Let's say a half marathon in 3 to 3.5 hours, because I'm just so slow. I get it. I get it. But it's so hard on your body and so hard on your mind to work on distance and speed at the same time. Now, of course, you probably follow people on Instagram where they are working on speed while they're training for a marathon. The likely scenario is these people have been training for this marathon for 10 years. Now, obviously not this actual marathon, but they've had minimal to no interruptions in any of their training in 10 years. So although it looks like they are increasing their mileage and getting faster or working on getting faster at the same time, it's unlikely to be the case. These probably are not new miles to them. Like I'm thinking of one runner in particular that I follow on Instagram, and she posted like a 12-mile run that she did yesterday. And it was, running a 5 minute and 45-second pace for 400 meters 7 times and running a 650 minute per mile pace for 100 meters 8 times, or whatever it was. I don't know exactly, but it came out to be a total of 12 miles. And in her notes about it, she said, oh, this was hard. This was fast. Didn't feel good, but got it done. Now, she's not doing that on the first time she's doing a 12-mile run. She has been doing rinse and repeat having done 12 miles over and over and over again for the past 10 years. So these aren't new miles to her. So she can work on getting faster. And that's what she's working on now. She's aiming for a very particular marathon finish time. She finally beat sub 3 hour marathon, I think last year. And I think now she's going for like a 2 hour and 57 minute marathon or something like that. So these aren't new miles to her. Marathon distance is not new to her. So she can work on her pace. So my runners, you're probably listening like, oh my God, she had to run 5 minutes and 45 seconds per mile pace for even 10 seconds. Sounds impossible. Yeah. If you're planning on working on finishing ahead of the balloon ladies and having time for character stops, you're probably hoping to run like a 14 minutes and 30 second per mile pace at your race weekend. It's very different than a 6 minute per mile pace. And that's okay. But that workout for you would not be appropriate. And so for that type of runner who would be running a 14 or 14:30 as race pace, I recommend starting on your speed, starting on your pace before you officially start training. So if you are running Dopey 2027 or planning to run, because maybe you're listening to this before registration's even open, you are hoping and praying to get in, but as of right now, you don't know. Training for that will start around July 1st. Now, exact date is to be determined because we don't know the exact race weekend dates for Marathon Weekend 2027 and beyond. So the exact timeline is to be determined. But let's say you're listening to this in January 2026. Work on your speed and pace before you work on official training. So before that July 1st start. So that's recommendation number one. Work on it first. Work on it first because not only will it not conflict with distances, you'll be able to get faster so that your training for the actual race will be faster. Because let's say your easy long run pace right now is 17 minute per mile average. My clients consistently, when they are training to improve their pace, they get 60 seconds faster in the first 30 days of speed workouts, strategic, specific speed workouts. You get a lot faster in those 30 days, 60 seconds per mile faster on average. Some people a little bit more than that, some people a little less than that. And then it is a smaller amount in the following months. That's okay. But let's say it's even just 5 seconds per mile faster. If you do that first 30 days, let's say it is 60 seconds per mile faster, and then you still have another 3 months on top of that, that's another 15 seconds. So now it's a total of 1 minute and 15 seconds per mile faster that your easy pace is. And then that will translate to race pace. So if you start this sooner than when you're actually training for the race, your long run pace will be faster, but won't feel harder. It will still feel easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? And so you're working on that before. So if you're doing a traditional Run Disney season, Springtime Surprise is your last race, well, you could start training for pace at the beginning of April. But if you're doing Springtime Surprise, that's going to interact, that's going to overlap with where you are in taper. In taper, you're conserving energy, so you don't want to go too fast. So you'll probably wait until like May 1st. So then you have May to June and June to July. You have 2 whole months to work on improving your pace. And then at the beginning of Dopey training, if you have been, shuffling your long run up to 5 or 6 miles from your previous Run Disney training, like you didn't have too much of a gap, and you could just still cycle through 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 and 6, then in those first 2 months of Dopey training, you could continue to work on your pace because those long run miles, again, they're not new. So you can strategically work on your speed and your pace for a total of 4 months. And then once you start getting into new long run mileage, yes, you could continue getting faster, but it's not going to be the primary goal anymore. But you could have been working on it for 4, 5, maybe even 6 months, depending on what your long run circulation mileage had been before. So start it early. Early meaning before you officially start training for your race. Now, if you've been listening for any length of time, you know that I have 5 phases of a running journey. So you have the training phase, the taper phase, the race phase, rest and recovery, and then the build phase. So build phase is after your last race, after the 2 weeks rest and recovery, but before official training actually starts. So build is where you build strength and speed. That's where you work on that. That's typically April, May, June timeframe, depending on when your last Run Disney race is. Many runners just stop at Princess Weekend, so your build phase could start mid-March. Let's call it March 15th because that's 2 weeks after the half marathon for Princess Weekend. That's a long time to build up speed and strength before training for something like Dopey officially starts. And then while you're actually training, whether it be the build phase or the training phase, working specifically on speed. So I recommend 4 different types of speed workouts for slow back of the pack Run Disney runners. So if you're looking to get character stops and you haven't been able to have them before, listen up. These are the types of 4 speed workouts I recommend. Hill workouts, 30, 20, 10, where you're running different intervals for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, or 10 seconds. Progression run, where you're progressively getting faster until peak, and then you come back down. It's kind of like a ladder. And then tempo runs, where you run a designated pace for a designated amount of time, like 5 minutes at a time. Using those specific speed workouts for the specific parts of a Run Disney race. So, as an example, you want to run hills because you are going to be going up and down on and off ramps. So you need to practice running up hills so that you either can run up the hill or you know how your body feels running up a hill and you can make the decision to not do that. So for me, I do run hills, but race day, I walk them because I know that running hills are not fun for me. I don't like them, and I'd rather just not be miserable. I want to feel the magic. So walking up them just makes me feel so much better. So I know that because I have trained on the hills. And then you know how fast to run up that hill and know how long it will take your body to recover from running that fast up the hill so that you can pace yourself and you don't try and run 5 minute per mile pace up that hill and realize, oh my God, it takes me 15 minutes to recover, as opposed to running up that hill an 11 minute per mile pace and it only takes you 1 minute to recover. That's a big difference. At 5 minutes on average for taking a character stop, that could be 2, almost 3 character stops right there in that recovery's time. So you want to make these strategic speed workouts. That is what will get you faster. And then working on running slower on your long run. You've heard it before. 80% of your runs should be slow and easy. We can make that be the long run. And then cross-training workouts or walking workouts, those are slow, easy peasy. They fall in that 80% of the time category. The reason you want to do that is so that you have the energy to go hard on your speed workouts. If you are always working at your max pace on every single workout, your runs, your walks, your cross training, your speed workouts, your long runs, if you're always at top speed of yours, everything's working in the gray zone. So you can't ever go faster on those speed workouts because you're gassed out all of the time. You need to run slow, run easy on your easy days so you can go hard on your hard days. And when you go hard on your hard days, on your speed workout days, that's what gives you the overall improvement in pace and speed, where you can knock off all of this time so you have time for these character stops. Because if you can knock off a minute per mile on your pace, that gives you 13 extra minutes for a half marathon, 26 extra minutes for a full marathon. That could be 3 character stops for that half marathon right there. It could be 5 in the marathon. So the little bits add up. Start working on them sooner than you think so that you're not adding new miles and going faster at the same time. Have strategic speed workouts where you go hard and, really push your limits, and go slow and easy on those other runs so you have the energy on those speed workouts to go faster. These are all things that we work on in Stronger, Faster, Finisher. That's literally the name of it. You get stronger, you get faster, you become a finisher. We work on all of these different things. So if you ever want specific guidance for yourself, consider joining Stronger, Faster, Finisher. I will open up the next round coming soon. Otherwise, take the information that you've learned from this episode and see how it works for you.